We are right in the year 2026, and it really feels as if the great era of classic MMORPGs is slowly coming to an end. More and more often, multi-million-dollar projects are released, only to shut down again after a short time because player numbers drop dramatically. Either the expectations were simply too high, or the games have so massively failed to deliver on their own promises that it almost borders on fraud. Most recently, Ashes of Creation showed us exactly that. For many years, it was considered one of the great hopes for the MMORPG genre and could not fulfill those hopes in any way. And now, since February 24th, Zemi Interactive is presenting us with Iverian Wars, another new MMORPG that is being marketed as the spiritual successor to 4-Story. 4-Story itself was extremely successful in Europe and many other countries starting in 2008. But we are deliberately saying was because the glorious times are already very long gone. Enormous bad decisions by the developers contributed massively to this. We have summarized all those mistakes for you in a special video because otherwise it would blow up the scope of this review. If you are interested, just check out the video that pops up in the top right corner. In this video, we are giving you a first impression of Iverian Wars. It is impossible within just a few days to list all the mechanics of the game for you without mistakes. Moreover, Iverian Wars is currently in early access. That means the developers, Zemi Interactive, plan to regularly expand the game with patches. Before we really dive into the video, though, we have to briefly talk about Zemi Interactive. The studio was founded in South Korea, and together with the publisher Gameforge, brought 4-Story to market in 2008. 4-Story was considered a very successful MMORPG and a free-to-play alternative to World of Warcraft, but the fame did not last long. The last really big content patch came in May 2015 with Battle of the Worlds. Since then, there has mostly been radio silence. Over 11 years, no reasonable new content on the original 4-Story servers of Gameforge. Instead, a game full of bugs that kept being added and have not been fixed to this day. On top of that came empty promises, ever new 4-Story servers with other publishers that offered no new content, pure cash grabs to rip off hopeful players who were hoping for the return of the old days. For years, Zemi Interactive posted strange things on social media, so that people seriously wondered, does the studio even still exist? Or is just one single person trolling there? In short, over the last decade, Zemi Interactive has developed into an extremely unserious developer that has disappointed and exploited the community. That is exactly why we approached Iverian Wars with enormous skepticism. In this video, there will be many comparisons to 4-Story, because that is exactly what Iverian Wars is, the spiritual successor. Moreover, Zemi Interactive gave us an interview, which we will also show you in this video. We start in Iverian Wars and find ourselves back in character creation. Here we can choose between 6 different classes and 3 different races that we already know from 4-Story: Mage, Priest, Summoner, Archer, Assassin, and Warrior. Then quickly adjust the hairstyle, select the kingdom, choose a name, and we already start in the capital of the country we selected. We have chosen Craxion. We quickly notice that graphically, it looks quite a bit different than the predecessor game. Also, the map where we spawn feels unfamiliar at first. But at its core, we quickly realize that it resembles the original capital of our kingdom from 4-Story. But it is structured differently and looks clearly different due to the graphics. We quickly head to the first mission toward the leveling area, and at the beginning, get a small introduction to the combat system. As expected, it is pretty much exactly the same as in 4-Story. We also have different skill trees, and, depending on how far we level up, can add more attacks. Shortly after starting to level, we also enter our first mini-dungeon and have to defeat a boss spider. This leveling section also looks really great when we compare it to 4-Story. But unfortunately, the first death does not wait long for us. But no problem. After a short search, we immediately find a player who wants to help us. We also encounter quests that we did not know from 4-Story like this. For example, right at the beginning, you have to transform into a mole to get into a house. or complete a small jump and run parkour, which is also supposed to appear in many leveling sections. This may sound totally ridiculous to many that you are happy about it, but from 4-Story, we did not know such mechanics. So Zemi Interactive has put some thought into it, and in the first moment, Iverian Wars also feels like it. Before we talk further about our experiences, we will talk to you about the interview that Zemi Interactive sent us by mail. Unfortunately, some questions fell out because we thought we could present you with a video before release and tell you more about Iverian Wars. Unfortunately, we only received the answers shortly before release. We summarize the most important things for you. Zemi Interactive confirmed to us that the number of developers has shrunk in recent years. Gore will play no role, only Defugel and Craxion. The max level at the start is level 80. The servers of Iverian Wars are located in Ireland. All cache items are supposed to be farmable. To the question whether there is a roadmap, we received no answer. In the cache shop, there is an integrated ticket system for player support. Zemi Interactive emphasized that they do not work together with private servers. To the question whether 4-Story from Gameforge will still receive new content, we received no answer. Back to our leveling progress. After we finished all quests in our capital, we arrive in our first leveling area, Yesod. Here we note that this area has also changed significantly, but the basic structure is still like in 4-Story. Here too, we recognize that the graphics have changed. The fortresses look more impressive, the leaves of the trees and the grass move, and the textures are sharper. But we notice that although everything looks bigger, it also appears somewhat more loveless because of that. The Yesod from 4-Story was more colorful, more compact, and therefore more alive. Here it feels colder, barer, and less lovingly designed to us. Right now, we are showing you Tiberid, a leveling area that comes after Yesod. And here too, everything looks very bare and less detailed than it was in 4-Story. While they at least scored points with the quest at the beginning, we have to say that we like the design of the normal leveling areas much less. The further we level, the more we notice that some quests are unfinished and buggy. For example, this monster is supposed to drop an important item for the main quest, but after an hour, we still have not received it. Eventually, more players joined, and we tried together to get the item, unfortunately in vain. Since we could not finish the main quest, we went to the mission zone. There you can kill stronger mobs and are supposed to get more experience points for it. Unfortunately, leveling here takes quite a long time, and even with experience potion, there was only very little progress per killed monster. What also bothers us is the monster mechanic. Unlike in 4-Story, in Iverian Wars, there are individual groups of monsters. While in 4-Story, you got experience points for each single monster, here you only get experience points per monster group. So leveling is clearly harder, and on top of that, you cannot pull multiple monster groups on your own because they do quite decent damage. Sure, in the mission zone, you get, e.g., white crystals and other items that are important for crafting items to upgrade armor, but for us, that is not in proportion. By the way, there are currently no mission wars yet. Whether that will still be patched in, we do not know at the moment. Let us take a look at how we can craft better equipment. When crafting armor, the same materials as in 4-Story are needed, e.g. Osiris gemstones, which you are supposed to get in 2 new dungeons, Ancient Stronghold and Palace of Chaos. You do get scaled up by level, so you have, e.g., more health points, but unfortunately for our level at the time of recording, it is still too little. Here, you should look for a group to enter together with. After we spent about an hour in the dungeon with a group, at the end, we did not have a single Osiris gemstone in the inventory, but only some armor pieces with improved stats. How are we supposed to craft reasonable PvP armor like this? However, one can say that the combat animations in the dungeon really looked good, and the fights were more challenging than in 4-Story. Another issue is that currently, you can only craft 2 chests that contain the items for upgrading armor, the Knight's Box and the Hero's Box. Here you see, for example, the contents of the Hero's Box. Note that you can only receive one of these items randomly, so not the complete contents of the chest. Now, you see here a player who, at the time of recording, had already played Iverian Wars for 20 hours, farmed, leveled, and participated in PvP. Pay attention to what items he was able to farm together in that time. We notice that a lot is still missing to be able to craft such a chest. And even if he had crafted such a chest, that by no means he can start upgrading his armor with it. If, for example, he receives 2 tinctures of persistence, he still has no spell formulas to get started. And, as mentioned at the beginning, he has already played 20 hours and has not even received the items to craft a single chest. Admittedly, the ceiling sap can be bought from an NPC, but some black crystals are still missing. And right next to it, you can buy the chest for a few euros in the cash shop. That does not seem fair to us, and means that at first glance, it looks as if Iverian Wars is pretty heavily pay-to-win oriented. The time required to farm the necessary items seems completely disproportionate compared to simply buying them from the cash shop. What are your thoughts on this? Feel free to write them in the comments. But what else is Iverian Wars actually about? At its core, Iverian Wars is still like 4-Story, a class tactical and guild-based game. There are 2 hostile kingdoms that fight each other, Craxion and Defugel. The guilds of both sides compete against each other in territory conquests and have to capture fortresses. These fortresses are located in 5 different countries, so-called PvP zones. The different classes play a big role here because each class has a special task to fulfill in a group of up to 7 players. That is already known from many other MMORPGs, like also from 4-Story. There and also in Iverian Wars, the combat system works very well and is tactically demanding. Really, every class has its own task and can contribute to the group. This core point, the combat system, has therefore remained identical. Only the PvP zones have changed visually. Better textures, newer buildings, and the combat animations of the classes have partially changed. Also, the process of territory conquest has changed slightly, but if you want to play Iverian Wars, you can find that out yourself. In territory conquest, all 5 PvP areas have different times when they and their fortresses can be attacked. We can understand that Zemi Interactive wants to vary the times since it is a global server, but we find that the times are too far apart. Chest, for example, can be attacked at 4 a.m. at night, while e.g. Woodland can be attacked at 12 noon, so you cannot, like in 4-Story, attack all areas at the same time. That takes away some of the guild dynamics, and we find that a bit of a shame. The areas are not specifically assigned to a guild, but only to the respective kingdom. We already know that from the earlier 4-Story, because there was like that for a long time too. Castle conquests, like they exist in 4-Story, are not yet present at the time of recording. Zemi Interactive has, however, confirmed to us that they are already working on a kind of castle conquest. With Iverian Wars, Zemi Interactive takes us back to a time in which we experienced many beautiful moments, the time of 4-Story. But in doing so, Zemi Interactive has forgotten exactly the 4-Story where we experienced all these moments. The original 4-Story with publisher Gameforge is dying, and Zemi Interactive alone is responsible for that. The step to develop a successor seems logical, but in the end, the question remains, was Iverian Wars really needed? Would it not have been enough to patch all the innovations that Iverian Wars has to offer into 4-Story over time? Iverian Wars is what Zemi Interactive missed all these years, to supply their once great game with regular content, and they cannot make that up. Iverian Wars offers a nice atmosphere at the beginning and revives old feelings, but whether these feelings can last will have to be found out by each of you yourselves. For us, Iverian Wars is missing the soul that 4-Story had.